possible solutions to prevent the recurrence of bad decisions will immediately flow once you get answers to the three questions. Who's the decider? What information do they have? What incentives do they face? Some combination of three solutions will typically emerge. The first possible solution is to move decision rights to someone else with better information or incentives. A second solution is to improve the information flow to the decider. If bad information is the problem and we can get that information to the decider, give them better information. The third possible solution is to change the decider's incentives. If the decider has an incentive to make a bad decision, well, can we give them an incentive to make a good decision? A well-designed organization is one in which deciders have enough information to make good decisions and the incentive to do so. When seeking a solution, remember that if the problem does not exist, if the cost of the solution is greater than the cost of the problem. Don't fix a problem if the cure is worse than the disease. Again, recognize that no organizational structure is perfect. There's always going to be some things that happen we don't like. Slippage, bad decisions, loafing, all sorts of behaviors that at some level you think is contrary to the interest of the owners. However, coming up with ways to eliminate all sorts of bad behavior involves cost, and sometimes the cost of eliminating the behavior is higher than the cost that the owners incur if they let some bad behavior occur. Don't fix a problem if the cure is worse than the disease. A little summary here. Here's a 7-step process to follow to apply the rational paradigm to identify and improve decisions. Step 1, define the problem. What decision is a mistake? Remember that a decision is bad only if it hurts the interest of the owners and an outsider could predict that it would do so. Remember also that making a bet that does not pay out is not a bad decision if the expected value is high enough to compensate the owners for the risk they bear. Once you've identified a bad decision, now ask the three questions. Who has the decision rights? What information does the decider have? What are the decider's incentives? At that point, you can begin, you can then try to develop solutions. Can you transfer decision rights to someone else with better information or incentives? Can you improve the information flow to the decider? Now, if someone's giving the decider biased information, the analyst should use the rational paradigm to examine why that person decided to give biased information. Somebody decided to send bad information. Who was it? What information did they have? Did they have bad information, or did they have an incentive to give biased information? The book Freakonomics has several examples of realtors that might have an incentive to give biased information to buyers or sellers. They have incentive to indicate to buyers that the market is really hot and they ought to be willing to pay a high price for a house, and the sellers that the information is really cold and they should be willing to accept a low price for the house. Sometimes people have incentive to give bad information, and if they have that incentive to give bad information, they'll often send it forward. And in some cases, the real solution might be to figure out how to make the information unbiased, and that will solve the problem. Finally, step 7. Can we change incentives facing the decider so that the interests of the decider align better with the owners? We're going to talk more in much more depth about that in the next lesson. Now, here are some in-class problems. Please look at these before you come to class. We're going to start off just talking about them and let you guys work through them as a group, individually. I hope to spend most of the class working through problems, and this is the first set that we'll use.